So let's go ahead and get this started. The next one. All right. Hey everybody, it's Brant within my head channel, and I'm back with another video today. And I've got my good buddy Rick from It's All For You Demon here.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about what if, and the day we're shooting this is, Rick, is actually the anniversary of the solo albums. So I've got my solo albums flying in the background there. And this time of year I really listen to the solo albums. And I always tend to listen to them in the same order when I listen to them. I start off with Gene's, and then I listen to Peter's, and then I listen to Ace's, and then I listen to Paul's. And I don't know why I do it in that order, but I just do. It's just, and I get something out of every one of the solo albums. I have favorites that I like more than others, but I get something out of every single one of them. And I always like the debate of who's is the favorites and stuff, because everybody, every once in a while, they're like, Ace is the favorite, it's the best, and Paul's the favorite, it's the best. But now for you, which is your favorite?
Mine's Gene.
Yours is Gene's. And every once in a while, I know a guy, his favorite is Peter's. So every once in a while, you have somebody that they like that's not the typical. But it's funny that I don't know why I do it, and I'm kind of an OCD type person sometimes. But when I do listen to them, it never fails. I listen to Gene's first, then Peter's, then Ace's, and then Paul's. If I'm going to listen to all four of them at the same time, I do that. Do you have a listening order you listen to them in?
I don't have a listening order, but I do have a sort of seasonal preference. October, like you said, fall and October is the perfect time for the solo albums. Gene is perfect anytime to me. Peter is a rainy day record, and I don't know why. And then Paul is a night record.
Mm-hmm.
It has, to me, like at night in your car with the windows down, Paul's album's perfect.
And and didn't you tell me one time, if I'm not misquoting you, but didn't you say Ace's is kind of like a summer album?
Ace is the one that, of all four, Ace can be a summer, winter, and fall album.
Yes, I agree. So,
and I think I always associate the winter because of the blue. I don't know why I do that.
Yeah,
I'm odd.
Maybe. And just talking about the solo albums a little bit here, leading into what we're going to do. The solo albums were very huge. I remember when the solo albums came out, I would have probably at some point in time today been in line to get my solo albums. And so I would have got my solo albums, and I'd have got them in my little bag, and Mom would have picked up some. I know I would have got a t-shirt. I had a t-shirt that had all four of them on it, and I had a Peter shirt that had his big face on it. And I had posters. She got me the poster that had all four of them on it. And then I don't know if she bought me all individual posters. I probably got Peter, because during that time I was like really in. Peter was my favorite member of the band. And so the solo albums was just, it's almost like we've talked about before. They're like Santa Claus. It's like the Norman Rockwell, when he painted Santa Claus, I think, if that's who painted him, he became Santa Claus. And so this Kiss, this version here behind me, the color scheme, Gene became red, Paul became purple, Ace blue, Peter green. That's the scheme that they've followed ever since. Their makeup had varied a little bit up to this point, until you got to this point, and then it was almost cemented as, until they took it off. And even when they put it back on, it basically became, okay, this is how we look, this is how our makeup is. And it basically is the image I was talking to you before. It's the image of Kiss that everybody has kind of come to know ever since then. So, but what if they hadn't have done it? What if there had not been, and I'm not the first person to do this, I've seen other people do it, but what if there hadn't been the 4 solo albums? What if, because originally the original intention was they were going to work on each other's albums together. But the fact of the matter is that Ace and Peter were spinning out of control. Peter was really spinning out of control. Ace was not so much out of control, but he was not at this point. But he was tired of Paul and Gene's bullshit, so he wanted to go off and do his thing. Peter was looking. I don't think Peter was looking to go off and do his own thing because he got fired. And Ace was looking to go do his own solo album because stuff was just getting so crazy. And they were like, no, stay in. We'll let you do a solo album, Ace. We'll let you do a solo album. And so, but originally they were going to do 4 albums. And wow, you glitched hard on me on my side. Hold on a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, there you're back. But originally they were going to do 4 albums, and they were going to perform on each other's albums. So it would have been theoretically Kiss albums, but just all the songs would have been one lead singer. And then somewhere along the way, they said, no, we're going to go off and do our own thing entirely. Ace went off to Connecticut. He went off to Connecticut, and all the guys went off in their own directions. A lot of people think these albums happened after the Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. I'm tired. I don't want to be around you. We've done all this stuff. Let's take a break. Let's go record albums. When fact of the matter is, like, some people like Gene and Paul had already started working on their albums before filming ever began for Phantom of the Park. So it was premeditated. Some people say it's a theory to try to get out of their contract faster because I read one time and I heard on a podcast, I think it was History Science Theater, where they read the contract where whenever they put these albums out, 4 solo albums, they actually fulfilled 2 albums on their contract because 2 solo albums would count as one band album. So they fulfilled 2 albums. So in the amount of time they did a live album, they did double platinum, and they did 2 solo albums. So in the course of about 2 years, from 77 to 78, they fulfilled 4 albums on their contract, leaving just Dynasty left on the contract. So, but what if these hadn't happened? What if they would have made an album in 1978? That's what we're going to talk about. Me and Rick have picked 10 tracks. I don't know, Rick, if you made a track listing. I didn't put mine in the order of a track listing, but if you wanted to...
I did not either.
I figured, I didn't want to really get into the semantics of that. So I figured we would just be like, here's 10 songs that would have made a good 1978 album. And what I want you to try to get out of your head when we're talking about this, is not the way they sound on the albums, but what they would have sounded like if Kiss would have performed them. If Gene's songs, Peter's songs, Ace's songs would have been the entire band performing these songs, or, at least in some form and fashion, there would have been band members on it. Kiss always, towards this end of their career, they started having outside musicians and stuff. So, but let's do that. So since you're my guest, I'm going to let you start. And what I did on mine, just so you know, my format that I did was I basically started with Gene's album, of course.
Okay.
I'm glitching on my side. So what I basically did, just so you know the format, was I started with Gene's album on my side, and then I went to Peter's, and then I went to Ace's, and then I went to Paul's. Okay. You can go in however order you want to.
I'll do the same order.
Okay. So, but that's basically what I did was, and that's not putting my first song is not would have been what I would have think track 1 would have been, but it is just, I do have an idea of what I think would have been a good track 1, but when I talk about that song, I'll say this would have been a great opening track.
Okay.
So, you're first of the 10, and we are doing 10 tracks.
So, starting with Gene, Radioactive.
Okay.
Would have been my first choice.
Such
a great Gene song, and I think the band playing this song would have rocked it even more than it is on his solo record. I think it would have been a great song with the members of Kiss playing.
Gene's album, his songs, Gene's and Peter's albums, one of the things that plagues me about Gene's and Peter's albums when I listen to them that I don't hear so much on Paul's album, and I definitely don't hear it on Ace's album, is Gene's and Peter's albums, even though Gene's is all over the place as far as content, and Peter's is all over the place as far as musical style, they both have the sounds. They have that sound of that mid to late 70s. Gene's almost, some of his songs almost sound like porn music, you know, and Peter has the, hold on a second, I'm glitching here again. Peter's has like the keyboard, I think on Don't You Let Me Down, that keyboard that was starting to make its way through the songs, and just the sounds of their guitars. Ace and Paul paid a lot of attention to the way their guitars sounded. Paul was using an EBow. He's been very experimental. He was layering EBow because you could only play one string at a time. Ace was being very experimental. And Gene and Peter were almost just like slapping stuff together, you know. They had this very 70s, and I think it was because Paul did a lot of his own work. He had, you know, very few outside positions except for maybe Bob Kulick, and he had, you know, a couple bass players and stuff. And Ace was basically just him, Anton Fig, and Will Lee played bass on some, so it was like him and 2 or 3 people. And then Gene and Peter had like all these outside studio musicians or special guests or whatever that just kind of homogenized theirs and just made it very 70s general sounding. You know what I mean? So, but I do think, Gene, I agree. My first track from off of Gene's album that I think would have been great would have been Radioactive. I agree with you. That's my track as well. I don't think it'd been a good opening track for the album like it opens his album. Now, would you have all the wah 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 and all the you'd had all that stuff? I do too, because I think it makes the song. It's part of the song, you know. It's not an intro, it's part of the song. It sets the mood for it. So maybe a good opening to side 2. You know, but it'd be great opening, kind of like a Charisma, you know, side 2 type. So we both said Radioactive out of the gate. This is going to be interesting to see whose album gets more love and what songs we pick. So this is fun. All right, so what's your next track?
Mr. Make Believe. Absolutely, I love that song.
I love Mr. Make Believe too.
I love Gene's softer side. First time I ever really noticed it was Going Blind from Hotter Than Hell. I love Journey of a Thousand Years from Psycho Circus. Mr. Make Believe. Gene's solo album was the first Kiss album I grew up hearing Crazy Nights, hearing Asylum, but when my buddy Dan introduced me to Kiss, he had Phantom of the Park and Gene's solo album on cassette. So Gene's solo cassette was kind of my first dive into the band, and man, Mr. Make Believe kind of changed me. I don't know why. I love the lyrics, I love the imagery, and if you think about it, the song's about people wanting to be someone else, and that's kind of what we do. Like, Gene is our Mr. Make Believe, and I think I kind of resonated with that when I was 15. You know, staring at this album cover, like wanting to be a part of this world, and that song just kind of, and that song moved me a lot. So that's my number 2 pick.
One thing I could say about Gene's album, his solo album, and I know we're talking an awful lot about solo albums because I'm not trying to discount the solo albums. One of the things about Gene's solo album that I love and I admire is Gene's is probably, I think that they all made the albums they wanted to make, and I think that they were all honest in some regards, but Gene, I think, was the most intimate with songs like Mr. Make Believe, Man of a Thousand Faces. His album was almost biographical in I always liked the song "Man of a Thousand Faces" because of, you know, I just always liked it because I think that also kind of personifies Gene,
Mm-hmm.
and so speaking of "Man of a Thousand Faces," that would be my track number 2. I think "Man of a Thousand Faces" would have been a great done as a Kiss song because it does have some rocking parts, even though it has that orchestra in it that I'm not the hugest fan of. But it has those places where it goes that dun, 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 stuff like that. Because if that had been guitars, even if Kiss got a little experimental at this point in time and maybe put some orchestration in there, I think that would have been cool. So my second song off Gene's album that I would have put on this album would have been "Man of a Thousand Faces." All right, so
That, strangely enough, as much of a fan of Gene's I am, those are the only 2 songs I chose from Gene.
okay. Well, I only chose 2 off of Gene's too.
Okay.
All right, so we move on to Peter.
Peter. First track I chose from Peter. Where's my list? You Matter to Me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Absolutely love that song. I love the disco feel it has.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does.
Mm-hmm. I love those
we do.
Yeah, that Barney Miller sort of keyboard in the background, that Welcome Back Kotter vibe that song has.
It's 70s. Like I said, it screams 70s.
And I think it would have been such a fun track for Kiss, the band, to do. It would have been a departure for him, but it would have been a great track. That's my first choice from Peter.
Okay, yeah, I like that. That's got some. I'm not a huge fan of the keyboard in that song, so I don't know if that would have been. I'd like that to translate to the Kiss version, but I did like I like the background vocals in that one. Well, that's why you're still mad, and that ooh, they little things they do. I could see Kiss doing that, because Kiss would do those repeat stuff and the woo woos and stuff. I could see them doing that. You Matter to Me, I think is great. But I didn't choose it, but I like that song. But so out of Peter, I had a strategy in my head when it came to Peter. And I'll talk about it once I get done with him. So the first track the track that I always look forward to, there's 2 tracks I really look forward to off of Peter's album. One I put on and one I didn't. The first track I look forward to off of Peter's album is Easy Thing. And so I think Easy Thing would have been a great Kiss song. I think it would have been great on a 1978 album. I just love the simpleness of the acoustic and how it is and how it just kind of builds. The only thing I don't really like about it is when the background singers come in at the end. I think Kiss I would have liked to see them done something a little different, even though they did use female background singers in some of the albums from the 70s, like off of Love Gun, I think they had some, and Tomorrow and Tonight had background singers in it, the female background singers. And I knew that they were becoming a fan of doing stuff like that, and that was big in the 70s, so they were just kind of going along with trends. But Easy Thing, I love that, the opening line, love is so hard. Love is so hard to find. I mean, I love that. But love's such an easy thing to lose. That right there is deep for Kiss. You know what I'm saying? And I know he didn't write it, but that would have been a deep song for Kiss. So it would have been a good song for Peter to have on this album. So I choose Easy Thing off of his album.
Yeah, that would have been a great song to have like some harmonies too, like a Peter and Paul harmony. That would have been awesome.
Like when that part where he's building, when he goes, when you find your love, when you know it's real. That would have been built going into the chorus. That would have been I could hear Paul's voice singing along with him in that part. That would have been great. Like I said, that was been a good opportunity for that. All right.
So my next pick from Peter is Don't Let Me Down.
Don't You Let Me Down.
Yeah, I love that track. That's probably the first track I fell in love with from his record, and I think in the vein of Hard Luck Woman would have been a great song to hear the band play.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally. I love Don't You Let Me Down. There's so many songs off Peter's album that I really like. I'm just not a big fan of how they're executed or the way they sound because they just sound so dated. You listen to some of Peter's album, and Peter's album definitely sounds dated. But I really like Don't You Let Me Down too. It's one of my favorite songs off that album, but it's not one that I picked. My strategy with Peter, I only picked 2 songs off his album. I love I Can't Stop the Rain, but I didn't pick it. I don't know, I Can't Stop the Rain just didn't feel Kiss to me. But a song that Kiss is not, Kiss is, they're not too, what's the word I want to use? They're not above doing a cover song. So I wanted a little bit of a rockin' Peter on here. So I would have chose Tossin' and Turnin'. Because they actually did play it live on the Dynasty tour. Mm-hmm. And but Tossin' and Turnin', I just think it's probably one of the best rocking songs on Peter's. It's got that good guitar. I would have liked to hear Ace playing some of that stuff, and and even Kiss doing the do 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 instead of the women doing it, but having Paul or Gene in the background, Gene with his high harmony and Paul with the his harmony and stuff. I think it would sound really good. I think don't really need the horns and not really the saxophone solo because that screams Bob Seger in the 70s too. Every time I hear that saxophone come in, I'm like, is this a Silver Bullet Band song?
Yeah.
Because it just screams that. But have Ace do a solo instead. I think it would have been awesome. So, yeah, my second track off of Peter would have been Tossin' and Turnin'.
I only chose 2 Peter tracks as well. So we are right on track with our picks.
All right. Let me make sure I just got 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I do. All right. So we move on to Ace because Ace is usually who I listen to next. So we move on to Ace.
All right, my first track from Ace is oddly I didn't choose. Well, my first track is Snowblind.
Okay.
Just that I think with Ace and Paul, I didn't have to think about too hard like what would it sound like if Kiss recorded these, because to me Ace and Paul are the most Kiss sounding records.
I think Ace's songs on his album would have sounded exactly the way, because Ace's songs, his songs on his album sounded like you could have stuck Rocket Ride on his solo album. Mm-hmm. You could have stuck 2000 Man on his album. I mean, his transition was very, he was very level in his sound. The same for Paul. I agree totally.
Yeah.
Paul.
And I just think Snowblind, oh man, would have been killer.
I love that riff. That and I love when Ace speeds up for his solos. Mm-hmm. That Lost in Space, Ace, da-da-da-da-da. And I love that solo that he does on Snowblind is one of my favorite solos on his album. Mm-hmm. All right, so Snowblind for you. All right, my first track off of Ace's album, even though I love Snowblind, I didn't pick it. First track that I chose, even though I'm not the hugest fan of this song, it's not one of my favorite songs off of his album, but I think it would have been a good Kiss song. It definitely would have been a selling point for the album, and that would have been Rip It Out. If Rip It Out, I don't think Peter could have done the stuff that Anton Fig did. I know he couldn't have, but if they would have maybe done it in a style, Ace's album, it gets real tricky because one of the biggest factors to Ace's album is not only his guitar playing and his singing, but it's also the drumming that goes along on his album. And Anton Fig and Peter were in 2 different worlds at that time. But I think Peter could have done, or maybe, who knows, maybe Ace records his tracks with Anton. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? And Peter plays on the rest of the album, and Ace records his tracks with Anton. Who knows? But I recorded, I chose Rip It Out because just I think that it's a song off that album that would have been represented on a 1978 album.
Mm-hmm. My next track is Ozone.
Okay.
It's just kind of in the same vein as Snowblind. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of Ace's personality on a Kiss record.
That swagger.
Like it would be like his persona, kind of like Shock Me was on Love Gun. It would be his persona just on a Kiss record. Ozone it's so sleazy and so good. Great song.
Yeah, I totally agree because I think it's one of those songs you could have just pulled it off of his album and stuck it onto a 78 album because it sounds so Kiss. It sounds so Ace. It shocked me. It's 2000 Man. And I really like that song so much that is the song that my next song that I would have chose. I love Ozone.
Oh, wow.
I love Ozone. Just the way it starts off, just that simple, and then it gets into that and that just hold that lazy, I just love Ozone. And Ozone, it's not my favorite solo because he just basically does a scale. He's just he's just it's almost like he got lazy on the solo for that one, but the rest of the song just kicks so much ass, it doesn't really matter. So Ozone for me too. Now, do you have another track off of Ace's album?
Yes, Ace and Paul. I chose 3 for both.
Okay, all right.
So my next track for Ace. The guy's a guitar hero. He's a guitar god. Thousands of kids picked up their guitar because of Ace in the 70s. You have to give him a solo on a Kiss record. Fractured Mirror would have to be on this record.
Okay, so you stuck Fractured Mirror on it. Stick it at the end?
Yeah.
Stick it at the end? All right. So, yeah, because that's true. And that, I would have probably, I feel like an asshole now because I would have taken Fractured Mirror away from him. He could have done it on his solo album, his first post-Kiss solo album. But I'm an asshole because I'd have took it away from him. And I would have given them I'm in Need of Love because the lyrical content on I'm in Need of Love is not the most deep. I mean, he's just basically saying, I want some love, so give me some. I need some love, but I just love the riff, that and I just love the riff that he does. Yeah. And then the solo in it is hands down my favorite solo on this album. The it speeds up and everything, and when he just kind of rips into the solo, and there's no rhythm guitar under him, it's just him doing that solo, and I think it's either him or Willie playing the bass, and he just slapping the bass, and Anton. I mean, it's 3 guys, man, kicking ass on a song, and I love I'm in Need of Love. It's one of my favorite songs off his album, and I couldn't have left it off. And I wasn't going to choose just 2 Paul songs, and I really didn't want to choose less Gene or Peter songs, and I couldn't do 11 tracks, so I had to cut the instrumental. So that does it for me, and then we move on to the last 3 tracks with Paul.
So Paul, my first track, of course, would be Tonight You Belong to Me.
Okay.
Just a great opening track. It's classic Kiss. It's basically, to me, Kiss kind of grew, and after Love Gun, they just grew in kind of their complexity of songwriting. You can hear it on Dynasty, songs like Sure Know Something, Even I Was Made for Loving You, and Tonight You Belong to Me is that. And so I think it'd just be a perfect track for a Kiss record.
Okay. I agree. It is my first pick off of Paul's album. It is also the album that I would. It's also the song that I would start the album with. I think it's the perfect opening track. It's the better opening track of any of them. I think what I would probably do is I would be hard pressed to open the second track. I'd open the first side with "Tonight You Belong to Me," and either the second side I'd either open it with "Ripping It Out" or I'd open it with "Radioactive." I'm not sure which one I would have done, but "Tonight You Belong to Me" is one of the best songs I think Paul ever wrote, and I love the way that he did it. He shows off his maturity in his songwriting, his complexity in his songwriting. He self-produced a lot of his album. He had a producer for a while, and then he kicked him off. So I think Paul would have, if you could have had maybe Anton Fig and Paul Stanley producing this 1978 solo album or 1978 album, if you could have had the two of them producing it and getting along to produce it, I think it'd be great. Paul Stanley is producing this album. He was amazing. So yeah, I love "Tonight You Belong to Me."
My next pick from the Paul record would be "Take Me Away, Together as One." You and I have talked about this song before. It's Zeppelin-like massiveness, and nothing against Carmine Apiece or Appice. I would have loved to have heard Peter.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I don't know why it keeps glitching. It's like it keeps glitching on me. Hold on just a second. I wonder if my laptop's getting hot. Hold on just a second, because you're like dots and squares right now. Let's see. Waiting on it to come back. Wow. Turn your video off for a second and then turn it back on. All right, now turn it back on. There you are. Okay, good. Yeah, you glitched out bad for a second. Okay. So you were talking about nothing against Carmine Appice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So nothing against Carmine Appice. Great drummer, but I would have just loved to have heard Peter give the drums hell on this song. I love Peter as a drummer, especially in like the 75, 76 era. He was on fire, and if he could bring that energy to this song as a band song, I think it would have been amazing.
I agree. I think Peter would have not done Ace's songs the way Anton Fig did, and on this particular song, he wouldn't have done it the way Carmine did, but I wouldn't have wanted him to. I would have wanted him to put that Peter signature on it that he had, and Peter always gets a bad rap, but Peter was an excellent drummer, just as Ace caused many a kid to pick up a guitar. Peter caused me to pick up a pair of drumsticks, and so he was that inspiring, and so I think that would he have done it exactly the same as those two guys did? No, but you set any drummer in there without somebody telling them specifically what to play, they're going to interpret something their own way. So Peter would have done it too. I agree with you totally on this, to the point that "Take Me Away" is my next choice off this album. It's hands down my favorite song on the album. I would own Paul's album. If every song on his album stunk, I would own his album just for this song. It's like Peter's. My favorite song off Peter's album is "I Can't Stop the Rain." "Easy Thing" is a very close second. Sometimes I think I like "Easy Thing" a little better. So "Take Me Away Together" is one. So I'm very curious about number 3, because I think number 3, we've been the same on the first two. So I think number 3, I want to see if we stay together, or if one's going to go this way and one's going to go this way. Because there's a lot of good songs left on his album to go. So.
I'm probably gonna go this way on you, but I love this song, and I chose "Goodbye." One of my favorite songs on that record. this sounds crazy for me to say, but like the Paul record, the last two tracks kind of get ignored, I think. Kind of like Van Halen 1984, that album. The last two tracks on that record kind of get ignored. And to me, the last two tracks on Paul's record are kind of the cream that rises to the top. I love Goodbye. I think it would have been a perfect band song. And a perfect way to end an album. And I think the band would have rocked it, and it just would have been a great send off to a 1978 Kiss record.
I agree with you. I think that Love in Chains and Goodbye definitely on his album, they do get ignored by most people. And I will admittedly, my opinion is those two songs, other than Hold Me, Touch Me, Think of Me Together as I don't like Hold Me, Touch Me. I'm not in the Hold Me, Touch Me camp at all. But Goodbye and Goodbye is probably my, it's not one of my favorite songs on the album. I like it a little better than Love in Chains. Love in Chains just gets it's got a good solo on it. It comes in, Bob comes in wailing at the beginning. He's got a great solo on it. But it's just, I don't know. They almost, they almost feel like he didn't put as much effort into them. I mean, I think I read somewhere that he wrote Goodbye in 5 minutes while he was eating lunch at a deli down the road from the recording studio. He wrote it in 5 minutes, came in and recorded it, So, they just sound like they didn't just get as much care to them. And then, and then I'd say probably the other track off Paul's I'm not a big fan of is I'm not the biggest fan of Move On.
Me neither. I totally agree.
I just don't like that whole one. I'm just a baby mama set me on. And I don't like that whole feeling it has to it. And then it's got the female background singers in it. It's not my favorite song. But so, Goodbye, that's, like I said, it'd be a great ending to an album. He made it as ending his album. I remember when being a kid hearing, oh shit, Paul's saying goodbye. What does this mean? Because there's the rumors of the band breaking up. Paul's saying goodbye. What's this? Is this a hidden message? But my third song and the final track I would have stuck on this album that would make it 10 from Paul. My final track would be It's Alright. I love It's Alright. I love that. And I love the way Paul sings when it kicks in and he's in that mid-range that I'm pretty good at taking care of myself. Oh, I love that.
There's a lot of swagger in that.
Yeah,
song.
and that it's all right if you want me. It's all right. I mean, it's just really, I just love the way he carries it all the way to the end. That's It's All Right, and it's da-na-na, da-na-na, and it just kind of ends and goes off. And then it goes into Hold Me, Touch Me, and I want to shoot myself.
I love that song just for its AM radio cheesiness.
Oh my gosh. I remember being a kid and being like, okay, Paul, this is just gratuitous. I'm the lover. Because he was known at one point in time. He's known as the Star Child now, but I don't know if you remember on some of that stuff back then when we were kids. You talk about, aimed at middle school, early school readers. He was dubbed as the lover. Paul's the lover, and he wants to. His note in Alive. I wish I could, whatever he says in his note in Alive. I mean, it's like, oh, okay, dude, all right, back off a little bit, dial it down a notch. But yeah, that when it starts off that whole he's in his low voice and do I know that you are sleeping. Oh God. Yes, I wish I was asleep. I wish I was.
And they use it at the perfect point in Attack of the Phantom when Alyssa's like looking for Sam and she's all depressed.
Yeah. And even when it breaks into the chorus, the chorus. When it breaks into the chorus and he's got the background singers and I can just see him, hold me, baby, won't you tell,
That would make me want to listen to it. When we hang up from this, I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna play it.
You know what the best? You know what? Do you know why? Have you ever seen my Paul Stanley album review? Do you know why? Do you know why I don't skip that song? Do you remember? Pop quiz to you. Do you remember why I do not skip that song? It has got an amazing solo, and that is Paul playing that solo. And to me, even though Bob puts in some amazing solos on that album, that it's just got so much feeling to it. And
now, was that the track on his record that he really bragged about doing everything on?
Yeah.
There was, I think, that he just brags about, like,
Yeah.
6-string bass and blah blah blah, everything.
Yeah, and I can't believe that's out of all the songs on Paul's album, that's the song they released as a single. I mean, really? I mean, why not It's Alright? Why not Tonight You Belong to Me? I mean, why not?
I have a feeling they thought they had another AM radio hit, just like that.
I mean, it's like, dude, you should have gave this song to Air Supply.
You're really making me like this song even more.
It's the equivalent. It's the equivalent of Lost in Love, dude. It's the equivalent of Lost in Love. I'm all out of love. Hold me, touch me. I mean, come on. Yeah, it is. But like I said, I will not skip it because I wait for him to do that. And it'll be all right. I love the solo. Can't get enough of it.
You're making me really like this song. we should do a video, Kiss tracks that could be covered by Air Supply.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. There you go. My brother was a big Air Supply fan. Me and my brother, our musical taste, was opposite directions. He liked Kenny Rogers, and he liked Air Supply, Huey Lewis and the News. Bruce Springsteen. I've never been a big Bruce Springsteen fan. But yeah, he liked, it's like I think my brother didn't really get into Kiss until Dynasty. And I remember he used to like All Hell's Breaking Loose off of Lick It Up. He used to think that was pretty cool. But other than that, he wasn't the biggest Kiss fan. And so, anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, talking to you guys now, those of you who are still watching, hopefully you've watched this far. Interact with us. Put down in the comments if you was to make a 1978 album based on the songs from the solos, and be original. You can't say Ace's album. If you would if you can make a solo album, give every one of them some love. At least give Peter a song. At least give, if you're not the biggest fan of Gene's album, give Gene a song. I watched this one thing. They did this kind of on. They were trying to make a best. They weren't doing it. They were making a best of the solo albums type thing. And a lot of people said, "Oh, it's just the best of the solo albums." But I would have liked to have seen it as a Kiss album. And one of the History Science Theater did it, and one of them said he did it, and he's like, "You didn't include Peter's? You didn't include a song from Peter?" And the guy's like, "I'm just trying to sell records, folks." It's like, I was like, come on now. Peter had some good songs on his album. It just got a bunch. If it would have been produced differently and maybe recorded by Kiss, could have been a lot different. But anyway.
I have a huge soft spot for Peter's record too.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny that I like I said, I don't know why. I don't know what bug or tick it is in my brain that causes me to do it. But I listen to Gene and Peter's first, and I'm not just trying to get the worst out of the way. I really do enjoy their albums, and I do kind of feel like I'm saving the best for last, which is weird that I always listen to Paul's album last. But I go kind of back and forth on Paul's and Ace's. I won't really choose a favorite between the two of them. I've said before that my favorite's Ace, but if you look on my scores that I've done in the past, Ace and Paul's are really close together. and I like both of them. And like you said, sometimes it just depends on what kind of mood you wake up in that morning, or what time of year it is. Or like you said, if it's nighttime for Paul's or whatever. But anyway, guys, put your comments down there. Tell us what songs you would like to have on this album. What you would think would be good. Little bonus. Could you think? What would you have named the album, Rick? For those who are sticking at the end, if you're going to pick a track off the album, what would you have named the album?
Using a track title?
Yeah, use a track. I know that they weren't big on doing that. I mean, they did it for Love Gun.
I would say Ozone.
Ozone.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I think Radioactive. I think Radioactive would have been a good name.
Ooh, perfect.
I think Radioactive would have been a good name. It's in that line with Dynasty. Radioactive Dynasty. It's dangerous, I think it would have been a good name for the album. So anyway, what would you guys name the album? Those of you still watching. And if you are still watching, be sure to check out this guy's channel right here, Rick. It's Off of You Demon. You can find him on YouTube. Just search It's Off of You Demon. He's got great content, and I look forward. Whenever I get a notification, be sure to click to get the notifications for him. Subscribe to him and subscribe to me. Click notifications, because I look forward whenever I get a notification from him that he's put a new video up. I usually try to get it watched as soon as I can, because I'm always looking forward to what he's going to do next. So anyway,
I'm the same way for your videos, man.
All right, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the support from you guys out there watching. Me and Rick appreciate you, all of you. We appreciate you very much. So we're going to go ahead and close this out. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you do, we'll be around. We always plotting. We always stirring something up in a pot. So we'll be back for more in the future. So we'll close this video out. I'm Brant.
I'm Rick.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Awesome.